Hello. So today I'm going to be talking about If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I've been on a little bit of a dark academia vibe recently, having read Babel and Vita Nostra, so I thought I'd give this one a go. The main theme within this book would definitely be the idea of art imitating life, or life imitating art. The lead protagonist of this book is Oliver, who we meet at the start of this book has just served 10 years in prison for a crime that he may or may not have committed. The arc of the novel is Colburn, a retired police detective who just couldn't shake the feeling that Oliver was innocent of the crimes he was committed for. Now that Colburn's retired, he just wants to know the truth, so Oliver, in all its glorious detail, is telling him the story of what happened from the very beginning. The book is set in America and based within a classics conservatoire where all they study is Shakespeare. There is a real hierarchy, as there often is at conservatoires, between the first years, second years, third years and fourth years, but this institute is a little different in which you can only move up each year if you pass the audition. So even though you are in the institute, you can only move on to become a fourth year if you are kind of the top of your game. Oliver and his group of friends are all the best of the best, and they have been chosen to study in the fourth year program. In the third year, they study comedy, and in the fourth year, they're looking at Shakespearean tragedies. And it is this whole art imitating life, life imitating art thing that seems to seep into their friendship group. So this fourth year is made up of these 6 friends. They live together in a place called the Castle where all fourth years go to live. And they are basically a family. And having been to an arts institute, I can tell you that these kind of bonds, this kind of tight friendship where your art becomes your obsession, is very true to life. You do become like a second family. You trust your fellow actors. You trust your other theatre makers with every fibre of your being. You spend all of your lives together talking about art and what to do next. And I felt like this novel captured that idea really, really well. So in this friendship group, we have Oliver, who is our protagonist, who's telling this story. He is the kind of everyman. He's not maybe as talented as everyone else, or at least doesn't believe he's as talented as everyone else. Everyone else has their kind of archetype, and he sort of fills in whatever characters are left over. At least this is what he believes. He's a very good person. He's an honest person. He loves his family, but at the same time, he is constantly full of self-doubt about his abilities. We have Richard, who is the mega talent. He's 6'3", he's handsome, and he is one of the best actors the Institute has ever seen. But there is a darkness in him, a kind of a method acting that he does in which he gets transformed in the roles that he's playing. Meredith is our leading actress. She is beautiful. Everyone around her can't deny the fact that her beauty just radiates out of her. It becomes a sort of a major theme that she doubts that she has any talent, for people are always just looking at how beautiful she is. Meredith is Richard's girlfriend in that sense that he plays the leading man, she always plays the leading woman, and in their real life, they are together. We have James, who is Oliver's best friend, and it is their friendship that keeps Oliver kind of rooted and grounded through everything that happens. We have Alexander, who is the fool. He's a stoner, he likes a drink, he likes a party, and of course, that kind of personality transfers into him playing those comedic characters. We then have Ren and Philippa. Now, Ren is Richard's cousin, a very talented actress, along with Philippa, who is very close with Oliver as well. And then, of course, because it's obvious, there's a murder. And you spend the rest of the novel trying to figure out who did it. Did Oliver actually commit this crime? Or is Oliver covering up for someone? And you're just sort of trying to puzzle and piece these things together in a very traditional whodunit kind of story. Now let's talk about things that I liked within this novel. I really like the setting. It gives you a definite kind of Donna Tartt, a secret history sort of vibe going on. And I thought it was handled incredibly well. I felt like we were given enough of the lessons, the actual structure and the makeup of the conservatoire itself to feel like we were living in that world with them, but also it gave enough time to the sort of mystery of whodunit and the kind of main arc of the story itself. I really like the idea that we kept jumping back to Oliver in the present, in which we are trying to figure out kind of what happened, what's his take on these things. I really enjoyed the idea of it exploring art imitating life. I found that very interesting, and it also dives into the idea of how, in actual fact, conservatoires of this sort of ilk are actually quite cultish. And it's not until I think about it now and my time in the arts that I think about that's actually quite a true idea to explore. The idea that if you really, from an outside perspective, look at the things that kind of drama students, acting students do, especially if you're looking at Stanislavski and emotional memory, or even Meisner and finding the truth of a moment, those kind of themes are quite emotionally damaging to a student, and if you saw it from an outsider, it would feel quite cultish. The idea of getting a student to find that inner kind of turmoil, to find that inner fragility and bring it to the surface. And the way that drama and acting teachers do that, yeah, it can look quite cultish from the outside. And I thought that this novel approached that in a really smart way. The prose is also pretty solid. It's simple but flowery where it needs to be, and it does something quite interesting in its structure, in which moments when characters are talking, we kind of get the character name as it would look in a script. So if we ever have a scene where multiple people are talking at the same time, it almost format-wise falls into a kind of script style. Every chapter starts with scene 1, scene 2, and the entirety of the novel is broken down into acts. However, this did feel a little bit gimmicky. I felt like Rio could have pushed this a lot further to really drive home that idea of sort of art imitating life, and the fact that Oliver can't tell this story without breaking it down in a kind of Shakespearean script style. It comes in dribs and drabs, and it does give us that essence that kind of, as this story's being told, Oliver can't escape that, but I thought it could have been pushed a lot further. I understand its place and why it's there, because when we do go into sections of Shakespeare, it really helps with the kind of flow of the scripts coming into the actual story. So I do understand its placement, but there's a part of me that would have been interested to go, oh, what would this novel have been like if the entire thing had been told in script form? So now let's move on to things that I didn't quite like. Well, the characters are all very stereotypical. As soon as it plays out, it feels like a kind of a teen drama. You have all the archetypal characters taking place. You know, you've got the beautiful one, you've got the smart nerdy one, you've got the stoner, you've got the good guy who always doubts himself. These characters very much fit that stereotypical mold, and it attempts to go a little bit deeper at times, and the key players are well rounded. I just felt like it was a little bit too obvious. I also felt like the twists and turns in this novel were quite well signposted for the reader. If you are a seasoned reader, I can't see you having any issue being able to predict what's coming up. However, that did not detract from my enjoyment of this book. Now, this one is both a pro and a con, but I can see if you do not like Shakespeare at all, if you do not like Shakespeare, you will hate this, because it is a Shakespeare lover's dream. The characters in this are so pretentious, but in a way that makes sense. They quote Shakespeare to each other constantly. This book is filled with large passages of the characters just quoting Shakespeare back and forth to each other. The idea that they are so in the know and so in tune with Shakespeare's writing that they can use it to reflect moments of their own lives. And that makes total sense, because that really works with the story that's being told. But if you don't like Shakespeare, then you are probably going to hate it. You are probably going to be thinking throughout the whole thing, my God, these students are so pretentious. And they are. But that's the point. I think if you really enjoy the arts, if you really enjoy theatre, and if you love Shakespeare, then this is probably a bit of a must-read, especially if you enjoy thrillers and kind of dark academia. I think it tackles all those themes extremely well. But at the end of the day, even though I did enjoy this journey, I liked the characters and I found it a fun read. It by no means impacted me in the same way that Donna Tartt's A Secret History did. Now, it has been over 13 years since I read Donna Tartt's A Secret History, but I found that one just affected me a little bit more. I found like the writing was a little bit sort of harder to access, and that forced me to kind of dig a bit deeper. I also didn't understand the world of philosophy as well as I do now back then, so when I was reading Donna Tartt's A Secret History, it forced me to dig a little deeper and find things out. There was nothing really in here that forced me to go away, do any research, or think about it any deeper than what was on the page. My rating for this book would be 3 stars to 3.5 stars. I thought it was good to very good. If you love Shakespeare, now I like Shakespeare, but I don't love Shakespeare, so if you love Shakespeare, then I reckon this will be a 4-star read. If you love dark academia and Shakespeare, this might even be a 5-star read for you. But for me, I find Shakespeare's alright. I'm not a Shakespeare lover, but nor do I kind of really hate it that much. So it ended up just being kind of like a 3-star book. I thought it was really accessible in the writing style. I found it to be a page turner in which I just kept going and going and going. At no point did I want to stop reading. And I enjoyed the setting and the world that it was set within. I thought the structure was interesting enough to keep me hooked and kept me always wanting to think, okay, so how is this exactly going to end? How are the pieces or the chips going to fall into place? And I thought that Rio did a good job in that regard. So that was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Have you read this book? Did you really enjoy it or did you really hate it? Let me know in the comments and we can have a discussion. Right everyone, I have definitely rambled enough, so I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye.